Hey everyone, welcome to this week's module in organizational behavior. What you are looking at this week specifically is Chapter 7, which is all about trust, ethics, and justice. And then we're also talking about Chapter 8, which is about learning and decision making. So, with that being said, let's dive into it. So, the first part of Chapter 7 is about trust. And what trust is that it is the willingness to be vulnerable to another. That could be to another person, to an organization, to a situation. But it is the act of being vulnerable, right? You're not in charge anymore. You're trusting someone else. So that's what trust is according to the text with organizational behavior. Now, trust, it's built on a variety of things, but three key things that it's built on. So the first thing is the ability, right? So are you trusting someone that has skills and expertise to be able to deliver what you're trusting them on? Another one is benevolence. So that is, how does someone care for others, right? What do you see when you look at it from that way? And then there's integrity. So what are the different values that someone holds, and in your experience, are they honest? So trust, it can come from uh, a variety of places. And the textbook goes into it way more detail of where it comes from. So you need to make sure to read that. But one is where you can kind of trust people from their personality. So that's referred to as trust propensity. And the other one is where you're trusting people based on experiences, right? So you have certain reasons to trust someone based on the ability, benevolence, and integrity. So then we move into talking about ethics and justice. So the way that the book defines ethics is that it is a behavior that is aligned with moral principles, right? So you can look at, okay, how is a organization behaving, and is that behavior aligned with principles that seem to be moral, right? And you can think of what's the uh, ethics, right, that the business has taken on. What's their values, or is it more like societal ethics that they're looking at? Now, when we're looking at justice, this gets really interesting, and uh, it's just fascinating to look at in the workplace with justice. So, what justice is that it is the perceived, right? And I think that's the key word, is perceived fairness of an employee's treatment in an organization, right? So, perception is different between people. So, it is the perceived fairness of an employee's treatment in an organization, right? So, how is employee number A being treated compared to employee number B? So, the way that people tend to uh, perceive this fairness, right? That's what justice is there's four different ways. So, one is distributive justice, right? And so that is looking at the fairness of outcomes. And a couple ways that people try to perceive things in their head related to justice from this model is you could be looking at pay, right? If you perceive that you and someone else have the same experience, you're doing the same job, the same background, the same education level, then you would assume that you should be getting paid the same amount of money. If you're not, you're going to perceive that that's not fair, right? So that's distributive. The fairness of outcomes, right? So pay, promotional opportunities, workload, those are all different things that are tied specifically to distributive justice. Then we have procedural justice. Now, what that that is looking at the fairness of the processes that are used to determine outcomes, or the fairness of decision making processes, right? If you feel like a process is not fair, you're going to feel that all the fairness is off. And that is why an employee could be treated different in an organization. Then we have the interpersonal justice, and this is where you're kind of looking at it from a emotional state of mind, but you're looking at you know how does someone respect people, or is there dignity in how employees are treated, right? If my boss treats me horribly, but then they treat everyone else super nice, right? That doesn't seem fair. Or if I'm treated really well and I know someone else isn't, it's not fair. So that's looking at the interpersonal. You're looking at how people are respected, what kind of dignity they're getting, and just the overall treatment on a personal level. Then you have the informal justice, and what that is it's looking at the communication method, and how is the communication or explanations given, right? What's the quality of that? If there's decisions being made with closed doors, no one knows what's happening, people are going to perceive that there are unfair decisions being made. However, if a organization is a lot more transparent about how decisions are made, and what communication's happening, then people tend to perceive that it's more fair because the businesses and organizations are being upfront and transparent about everything. So that's informal. So these four things are the four key types of justice. We have distributive justice, procedural justice, interpersonal justice, and informal justice. So, as we move into the topics with chapter 8, which is all about learning and decision making, what learning is that learning, it's a change in knowledge, right? So, what you know, and skills, that's your ability to do things through experience. Okay. So, learning is a change in knowledge and skills throughout experience. So the book goes into a lot of detail when it talks about learning and different types of learning. But there's two things that I want to touch on, and that is the types of knowledge that we see when it comes to learning. So one is explicit knowledge. What that is it is knowledge that is easy to explain, right? It can be rules, it can be procedures. I like to think of it as things that you can learn in a classroom, right? There's a teacher that's there able to teach you something, whereas tactic knowledge is on the opposite side. It's harder to communicate. It's things that you learn over time, or you learn through situations, or it could be intuition, right? It's something that just comes naturally, or having the know-how of what to do. So the two main types of knowledge, and it's important not to get these confused, right? So explicit knowledge is knowledge that's easy to understand, whereas tactic knowledge, it's harder to communicate to people. Now, make sure, once again, I keep saying this, but go back, read the whole chapter in the textbook, because there's a lot more specifically about learning that's really important. So the second part of this chapter is related to decision making. And decision making is interesting, especially when you think about it from the definition that the textbook teaches. So decision making, it is the process of identifying and choosing alternative courses of action. So, you can think of it as you have a decision to make, right? And each option that you have is considered an alternative course of action. I tend to think of it, well, I think of it in a variety of ways, but I'm a Marvel fan. Hopefully you are too, and you all get this. But like on the Loki TV show, how, if one action changes, it makes a new timeline, right? So you're looking at all of the different alternative choices that could be made, right? The different courses of action, and you're judging through them to figure out, okay, what's the best choice, and then ultimately that's how someone makes a decision. Now the book, it does go through the actual decision making process a lot more in a lot more detail, but I wanted to touch on two types of decisions. So the first type of decision is what's referred to as a programmed decision. That is something that is automatic, it's routine, it's something that we do without even thinking about it, right? So it could be tying your shoes or brushing your teeth in the morning, or what kind of coffee are you going to get? I always get different coffees, so that would not be a programmed decision for me. But if someone always gets French vanilla, right, it's an automatic routine decision. Now, on the other hand, we have non programmed decisions. And what those are is they are unique, they're complex, and they require you to think a lot before you make a decision, right? So, I recently bought a new bag to travel with, like a new suitcase, but it's a wheeled duffel bag, and I did so much research on the different brands that I wanted, right? I was looking at Patagonia, I was looking at North Face, I was looking at Gregory bags, and I was doing all this research, right? Like what the materials are, what the weight is. That is a non-programmed decision. It's unique, it's complex, and it requires me to think through all the options and make a judgment, right? Make a decision. So, the key thing with this that I want you to take away is program decisions are automatic. You don't have to think about them, they're routine. Non program decisions are things that are unique, complex, and require you to make a judgment. So, once again, there's more stuff about the actual decision making process in the chapter. I don't want to go through it all because attention spans are very short. And so I just want to touch on some of the key highlights, and you go back and read the other parts in the chapter. All right, so that is it for the quick video overview of some of the key points from Chapter 7 and Chapter 8. Now, as always, this video, it does not replace your reading, right? The textbook goes into a lot more detail that I do not cover in these short videos. So the next steps for you this week is to make sure to read all of Chapter 7, which is about trust, ethics, and justice. And you also need to read about Chapter 8, which is all about learning and decision making. Make sure that you complete everything that's on this week's online module, so the weekly questions. And then if you have any questions, as always, reach out to me. My email, it's there on the screen, and that's also my cell phone number. So if you have any questions about the content or anything related to the class, just reach out to me, and I will talk to you all next week. Have a good one.